The warning signal. High Overseer Vaxlith stood motionless before the crystalline observation window of the Meridian Coalition's Strategic Command Center, his iridescent scales reflecting the holographic displays that filled the chamber. The data streaming before him told an unsettling story, one that threatened to upend the carefully maintained balance of power in the galaxy. "Impossible," he whispered, multifaceted eyes narrowing at the latest reports from Earth. "Their technological progression curve cannot be accurate." Senior Analyst Kirith approached cautiously, her datapads hovering around her like a swarm of luminescent insects. "The data has been verified through multiple sources, Overseer. The humans have achieved in 50 years what took other species millennia." The displays showed Earth's rapid advancement, from primitive combustion engines to quantum computing, from chemical rockets to their first tentative steps into FTL travel. But it wasn't just the speed that troubled Vaxlith. It was the unconventional nature of their innovations. "They're not following the standard technological progression paths," Kirith continued. "They're making intuitive leaps, combining technologies in ways our scientists never considered. Their first colony ships are already under construction." Vaxlith's auxiliary breathing chambers fluttered in agitation. The Coalition had encountered countless emerging civilizations over their 50,000-year history. All had been guided, contained, and ultimately integrated into the galactic community at a carefully controlled pace. But humans were different. "Show me their colony ship designs," he commanded. The holographic display shifted, revealing schematics that made Vaxlith's scales ripple with disbelief. The vessels were ugly by Coalition standards, a hodgepodge of different technologies cobbled together, with seemingly little regard for aesthetic or engineering conventions. Yet the underlying principles were revolutionary. "They've already solved the Karanov field stability problem," Kirith noted, "not through the expected quantum harmonics approach, but by introducing controlled chaos into the field matrix itself. It's crude, but remarkably effective." "And dangerous," Vaxlith added. "Their entire approach to technology is dangerous. They take risks no sane species would consider, implement solutions that should be catastrophically unstable, and somehow make them work." The Strategic Command Center's AI projected a series of probability curves. At their current rate of advancement, humans would achieve technological parity with the Coalition within a century. But more worryingly, their unconventional approaches threatened to destabilize the carefully maintained technological hierarchies that kept peace in the galaxy. "We cannot allow this to continue," Vaxlith declared. "Prepare a full analysis of their colonial expansion plans. We will implement containment protocols immediately." "Standard diplomatic integration?" Kirith inquired. "No," Vaxlith's scales darkened. "They've already rejected 2 attempts at diplomatic contact. Their response was unsettling. They thanked us for confirming the existence of advanced civilizations and immediately accelerated their development programs. No, we need something more direct." The display shifted to show Earth's planned colonial network, a dozen worlds marked for their first wave of expansion. Vaxlith studied them thoughtfully, his primary mind already formulating strategies while his secondary mind calculated probabilities. "We will allow them to build their colonies," he decided. "Then we will demonstrate why uncontrolled expansion is unwise. Prepare the sabotage teams. Full-spectrum technological warfare, but carefully targeted. We must appear to be natural disasters, equipment failures, unfortunate accidents. Nothing that directly points to external interference." Kirith's scales paled slightly. "The humans have shown remarkable resilience in the face of setbacks, Overseer. Are we certain this will discourage them?" Vaxlith turned from the window, his expression grim. "No species can maintain expansion with a 70% colony failure rate. They will learn their limitations, accept their place, and develop at an appropriate pace. The alternative," he gestured to a probability curve showing potential human development if left unchecked, "is unacceptable." As the command center hummed with activity, preparing for the first phase of containment, None of the coalition leaders recognized the fundamental error in their reasoning. They saw humanity's unconventional approaches as a weakness to be exploited. They never considered that by forcing humans to face constant failures, they might be creating something far more dangerous than the threat they sought to contain. Breaking point. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the ruins of New Horizon Colony, her environmental suit's sensors struggling to analyze the strange energy signatures that lingered in the air. This was the fourth colony to suffer catastrophic system failures in the past 6 months, and like the others, nothing about the disaster made conventional sense. Dr. Chen, her assistant's voice crackled through the comm. You need to see this. She made her way through the twisted remnants of what had been the colony's main fusion reactor. James Rodriguez, her lead engineer, stood before a partially melted control panel, his suit's lights illuminating something that shouldn't exist. The quantum signature, he said, it's identical to Eden Colony, down to the subatomic resonance patterns. Sarah's hands clenched inside her suit's gloves. Eden Colony was 300 light-years away and had been destroyed by a completely different type of failure. Atmospheric processors suddenly developing impossible contamination patterns. The chances of two completely different systems producing identical quantum signatures was effectively zero. This isn't random, she declared, her voice hard. We're under attack. Back on Earth, the Emergency Council meeting was already in progress when Sarah's preliminary report arrived. Admiral David Okafor stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's colonial initiative, his dark face illuminated by holographic displays showing the mounting casualties. 4 major colonies lost, 2 mining outposts destroyed, 3 supply chains disrupted, he listed grimly. Our expansion efforts are being systematically dismantled. By whom? Demanded Council Chair Lai Wei. We found no evidence of hostile ships, no signs of conventional weapons. Because they're not using conventional weapons, Sarah's hologram interjected as she joined the meeting from New Horizon. They're using our own technology against us, but in ways we never imagined possible. The atmospheric processors on Eden didn't just fail, they were transformed at the quantum level into something that shouldn't be able to exist. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. They weren't just facing an advanced enemy. They were facing one that could rewrite the laws of physics on a whim. Options? Lai Wei asked quietly. Admiral Okafor's response was immediate. We adapt. We learn. We overcome. I propose the immediate formation of an emergency innovation division. Every colony we establish will be a test bed for new technologies, new defenses, new ways of thinking. You want to use our colonists as guinea pigs. Someone objected. No, Sarah cut in. He wants to turn our greatest weakness into our greatest strength. These attacks, they're meant to discourage us, to make us afraid of expansion. Instead, we use them as the ultimate research and development program. She manipulated her holographic controls, showing the quantum signatures from multiple attacks. Look at these patterns. Each attack teaches us something new about physics we thought impossible. They're not just destroying our colonies, they're inadvertently giving us a graduate course in advanced xenotechnology. The council chamber erupted in heated discussion, but Sarah wasn't finished. We've already begun reverse engineering some of the principles. The quantum resonance patterns from Eden. We've used them to develop new shield harmonics. The molecular disruption fields from Aurora Base. They led to breakthroughs in matter phase transition technology. Admiral Okafor nodded grimly. They think they're teaching us to fear the unknown. Instead, they're teaching us how to master it. Every attack makes us stronger, more adaptable, more innovative. And more expensive, Council Member Rodriguez interjected. The resource drain is irrelevant, Lai Wei interrupted. Humanity didn't come this far by playing it safe. The Emergency Innovation Division is approved. Dr. Chen, you'll head the scientific division. Admiral Okafor will handle security and implementation. As the meeting concluded, Sarah found herself looking at the quantum signature data again. Something about the patterns nagged at her scientific instincts. They weren't just weapons. They were pieces of a larger puzzle, one that, if properly understood, might lead to something far beyond simple colonial defense. "Admiral," she called as the others filed out, "I need to show you something. These attack patterns, if we look at them as a whole, they're not just showing us new technologies. They're showing us gaps in reality itself. And I think we might be able to use those gaps." Okafor studied her thoughtfully. "What exactly are you proposing, Doctor?" Sarah's eyes gleamed with the light of discovery. "Something impossible. Something they'll never see coming because they don't think the way we do. They're trying to teach us our limitations. Instead, they're going to help us transcend them entirely." The adaptation protocol. The Emergency Innovation Division's main laboratory complex sprawled beneath the Martian surface, a maze of experimental chambers and quantum computing cores that hummed with barely contained power. 6 months had passed since its formation, and the facility had already transformed humanity's understanding of physics. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the central control room, surrounded by holographic displays showing real-time data from their latest breakthrough. The captured alien technology from the New Horizon attack had been a goldmine of information, but what they'd done with that information would have made their attackers' blood run cold, if they had blood. "Phase Shift Test 37 beginning," James announced, his fingers dancing across the control interface. In the test chamber below, a standard colony shield generator began to glow with an impossible light. Sarah watched the readings intently. They weren't just replicating the alien technology anymore. They were reimagining it entirely. "Initiate attack sequence." A series of quantum destabilizers, reverse-engineered from recovered alien tech, fired at the shield. In previous tests, such weapons had torn through colonial defenses like paper. This time, something very different happened. The shield didn't just absorb the attack. It consumed it, grew stronger, evolved. The quantum readings went off the charts. "Holy shit," James breathed. "It's working. It's actually working." Sarah allowed herself a small smile. "Not just working. Look at the harmonic patterns." The shield wasn't merely defending against the attack. It was learning from it, adapting its quantum structure in real time. They had turned humanity's greatest strength, the ability to learn and adapt, into a technological principle. Admiral Okafor's hologram materialized in the control room. "Tell me you have good news, Doctor. We just lost contact with Proxima Colony." "Better than good news," Sarah replied, sending him the test data. "We've cracked their quantum manipulation technology. But more importantly, we've found a way to improve it. Their attacks are based on rigid, predetermined patterns. We've made our defenses fluid, adaptive. Like an immune system," James added excitedly. "The more they attack, the stronger our defenses become." Okafor studied the data, his military mind quickly grasping the implications. "How soon can we implement this?" "That's the beautiful part," Sarah said, bringing up another display. "We already have. Remember those maintenance updates we've been pushing to all colonial systems? We've been laying the groundwork for months. Every colony has the basic hardware in place. We just need to push the final activation codes." The Admiral's eyebrows rose. "You installed experimental defense systems without authorization." "No," Sarah corrected. "We installed standard systems with hidden potential. Once activated, they'll begin evolving immediately, learning from every attack, sharing data across the network. The more they try to hurt us, the more they teach us." "And there's something else," James interjected. "Show him the void point data." Sarah hesitated for a moment before bringing up a new set of displays. These showed something that defied conventional physics, points where reality itself seemed to thin, where the normal rules of space and time grew fuzzy. "We found these by accident," she explained. "The quantum disruptions from their attacks create temporary weaknesses in spacetime. Most species would see these as dangerous anomalies to be avoided. But we saw something else. Possibilities." "Dr. Chen," Okafor's voice carried a warning note. What exactly are you suggesting? They've been teaching us that space is vulnerable, Sarah said quietly. That reality can be manipulated, folded, transformed. They meant to teach us fear. Instead, they taught us to see the universe in a whole new way. Project Nexus isn't just about defense, Admiral. It's about rewriting the rules of what's possible. She brought up one final display. Early designs for something that looked like a cross between a space station and a quantum computer, but built on principles that no human had imagined possible before the attacks began. When it's complete, she said, distance itself will become meaningless. Every colony, every outpost, every human settlement will be connected in ways they can't predict or prevent. They wanted to contain us. They'd given us the keys to true freedom instead. Okafor studied the designs, his expression unreadable. The resource requirements for something like this are astronomical, Sarah admitted, but every attack gives us more data, more understanding. They're literally helping us build it, piece by piece, and they don't even know it. In the test chamber below, the experimental shield continued to evolve, its quantum structure growing more complex by the second. But it was only the beginning, a proof of concept for something far greater. How long? Okafor asked finally. Sarah's eyes gleamed with determination. 6 months to initial testing, another 3 to full implementation. 9 months, Admiral, and we'll show them exactly what humanity does with impossible challenges. Project Nexus. The Meridian Coalition's Strategic Command Center was in chaos. High Overseer Vaxlith stared at the incoming data streams, his scales shifting through colors of confusion and alarm. Impossible, he whispered, an echo of his declaration from 18 months ago. But this time, the impossible wasn't just humanity's rate of progress. It was the complete failure of the Coalition's containment strategy. The latest attack on Sol Beta Colony, Senior Analyst Kirith reported, her voice trembling slightly. The quantum destabilizers. They didn't just fail. They were absorbed, transformed. The humans have somehow turned our weapons into power sources. But that wasn't even the most disturbing development. The holographic displays showed something far more troubling. Massive construction projects at key points throughout human space. The structures defied analysis, their quantum signatures fluctuating in ways that shouldn't be possible. Meanwhile, in the depths of Mars Base 1, Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the heart of Project Nexus. The central chamber stretched for kilometers, filled with technology that represented humanity's greatest achievement and their greatest gamble. Final diagnostic complete, James announced from his station. Quantum matrix is stable. Reality anchors are holding at 99.9% efficiency. Sarah nodded, her eyes fixed on the swirling patterns of energy that filled the chamber. What they'd built here wasn't just a defensive system or a new form of transportation. It was something entirely new, a network that existed simultaneously at every point in human-controlled space. Status report. Admiral Okafor's voice came through the comm. He was aboard the flagship of Earth's defense fleet, preparing for the inevitable coalition response. We're ready, Sarah replied. The network is complete. All colonial nodes are synchronized. We can begin final activation at your command. The Admiral was silent for a moment. The coalition fleet. Right where we expected, James reported, bringing up tactical displays. 20,000 ships gathering for their final solution to the human problem. They still think they're dealing with a primitive species that needs to be contained. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. They're about to learn otherwise. Admiral, request permission to initiate Project Nexus. Granted. Okafor's voice was firm. Show them what humanity does with impossible challenges. Sarah took a deep breath, then placed her hand on the quantum-locked activation panel. Initiating final sequence. James, begin the broadcast. Throughout human space, colonial communication systems activated simultaneously. The message was simple, transmitted in perfect coalition standard. Attention Meridian Coalition forces. Thank you for your inadvertent assistance in humanity's greatest technological leap. We are now ready to demonstrate the results. In the Coalition Command Center, Vaxlith watched in growing horror as energy readings spiked across human space. The massive structures they detected weren't separate installations. They were nodes of a single vast network, one that somehow existed in multiple places simultaneously. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "The quantum signatures." Karith's voice was barely a whisper. "They're folding space itself, not just at one point, but everywhere they've ever built. Every attack, every piece of technology we used against them. They didn't just study it. They transcended it." On Mars, Sarah watched as Project Nexus reached full power. The network wasn't just connecting human colonies. It was rewriting the very rules of space and time around them. Distance would no longer be an obstacle. Reality itself would bow to human innovation. "Network stabilized," James reported. "All nodes are synchronized. We're ready for the demonstration." Sarah nodded. "Send the coordinates to Admiral Okafor. Let's show the Coalition exactly what they helped us create." Above Earth, the Coalition fleet prepared for their final attack. They never had a chance to fire a single shot. In an instant, the laws of physics that they had taken for granted ceased to apply. Human ships appeared simultaneously at multiple points in space, moving through reality in ways that should have been impossible. But this wasn't just a tactical advantage. It was a fundamental transformation of what was possible. "My God," James breathed, watching the displays. "It's beautiful." Sarah couldn't help but agree. Project Nexus wasn't just working. It was exceeding their most optimistic projections. Humanity hadn't just defeated the Coalition's attempts to contain them. They had used those very attempts to break free of the constraints of space and time itself. Beyond boundaries, the universe, High Overseer Vaxlith realized, had a sense of irony. His fleet, the mightiest assembly of military power in known space, hung motionless above Earth, not as conquerors, but as witnesses to their own obsolescence. "Status report," he demanded, though the tremor in his voice betrayed his fear. "Impossible to determine," Karith responded, her scales a pale shade of confusion. "The humans aren't just using advanced technology. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics in real time. Our sensors, they can't make sense of what they're seeing." Through the command center's viewing portal, Vaxlith watched as human vessels phased in and out of existence, appearing simultaneously at multiple points in space. But it wasn't just their ships. Every human colony, every outpost, every installation was now connected through what could only be described as tiers in the fabric of reality itself. On Mars, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the Coalition fleet with a mixture of satisfaction and sympathy. "Signal Admiral Okafor," she instructed. "It's time for the final demonstration." James nodded, his fingers dancing across the quantum interface controls. "Broadcasting now." Dr. Chen's hologram materialized aboard the Coalition flagship. She stood before Vaxlith, her expression calm but determined. "High Overseer, I believe it's time we had a proper discussion about the nature of possibility." "What? What have you done?" Vaxlith managed. "We learned," Sarah replied simply. "Every attack, every attempt to contain us, taught us something new about the universe. You showed us that reality could be manipulated. We simply took that lesson to its logical conclusion." She gestured, and the space around them seemed to ripple. Suddenly, they weren't just seeing Earth. They were simultaneously viewing every human settlement, every colony, every outpost. Distance had become meaningless. Project Nexus isn't just a defense system or a transportation network, Sarah explained. It's a fundamental reimagining of what's possible. We've created a network that exists at every point in space simultaneously, connecting not just locations, but layers of reality itself. Karith's analytical mind struggled to process the implications, but the energy requirements, the computational complexity, would be impossible using conventional physics, Sarah agreed. But you taught us that conventional physics was just the beginning. Every quantum destabilizer you used against us, every reality-warping weapon, showed us new possibilities. We didn't just copy your technology. We transcended it. As if to demonstrate, the network pulsed. Across human space, new structures began to form, not built, but grown from the quantum fabric of space itself. The Coalition fleet's sensors registered power readings that shouldn't have been possible, technologies that shouldn't have existed for millennia. You wanted to contain us, Sarah continued, her voice gentle but firm, to force us to develop at what you considered an appropriate pace. Instead, you gave us the keys to unlock the universe itself. Vaxlith's scales had shifted to a deep blue of resignation. What are your terms? Terms. Sarah smiled. We're not interested in conquest or dominance, High Overseer. That's your way of thinking, not ours. We're interested in exploration, in discovery, in pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Project Nexus isn't a weapon. It's a bridge. The holographic displays showed the true scope of what humanity had created. A network that could potentially extend throughout the galaxy, transforming the very nature of space travel and communication. We're offering you a choice, Sarah concluded. Continue to think in terms of containment and control, or join us in exploring what's really possible when we stop limiting ourselves to what we think we know. The silence that followed was profound. Throughout Coalition space, reports were already flowing in of human vessels appearing at will, of technologies that defied understanding, of a species that had taken the Coalition's greatest weapons and turned them into tools of creation rather than destruction. In the Mars Control Center, James looked up from his displays. They're powering down their weapons. All of them. Sarah nodded, unsurprised. The Coalition had tried to teach humanity their limitations. Instead, they had helped create something that transcended all limitations, a testament to human ingenuity, adaptability, and the unstoppable power of turning obstacles into opportunities. Send the activation codes to all colonial nodes, she instructed. It's time to show them what's really possible when you stop trying to contain the unknown and start embracing it instead. As the network pulsed to full power, reality itself seemed to smile. Humanity hadn't just survived the Coalition's attempts to contain them. They had used those very attempts to break free of all constraints, physical and philosophical alike. The age of limitations was over. The age of possibility had begun. The end.